friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Did you know that February is National Library Lovers Month? I am so excited because I do love my library. I don't go into the library as much as I used to, but I love libraries. I love the impact that they can make in communities, that they're a safe place. They have so many programs. I personally bring my little nugget that I watch to multiple story times throughout the week. I think the library is a great place to support and encourage you to support as well. I challenged a friend of mine to go get a library card this month. I challenged two of my brothers to go get library cards this month. I just think libraries are fantastic. Last year, I did a series where I spotlighted books on my shelves that have the same word in the title. So today what we're going to be doing is taking 6 of my books that have the word library in the title, and I'm going to be trying a chapter of these books. A few of them I'm pretty confident I'm going to really love and want to read, but I'm going to go ahead and rank them as I read the first chapters and see which ones I might be able to get onto my TBR in the rest of February. It's currently the 13th, so I do have time and space to add a few of these potentially to my TBR for this month, and I would love to be able to do that. So here are the 6 books. First of all, we have The Last Chance Library by Freya Sampson. I already love Freya Sampson, and this is the last book of hers that's currently published that I need to read, so I am very excited to read this one. I don't know really what it's about, though, except that I love Freya Sampson. I have The Book Lovers Library by Madeline Martin. If you've been around here for a minute, you know that this was on multiple TBRs last year, and I just never got to it. This is going to be a historical fiction set in wartime England, and it features a mother and a daughter, so I'm very excited for that one. I don't know anything about this one, The Lending Library by Eliza Fogelson, so we're going to learn what this one is about and try the first chapter. A Christian fiction that I have is called The Librarian of Boone's Hollow by Kim Vogel-Sawyer. This is going to be a story of a pack horse librarian, which was a project that happened in the Appalachian Mountains during the Great Depression era. So I'm really excited to read this story, at least the start of it. We have The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentile. And I have 2 books now by this author, and I haven't tried any of them yet. I don't know. I mean, this one looks a little bit more darker and mysterious. I do think it is a mystery, so I'm excited about a different genre. It's not contemporary, it's not historical, but we have a mystery there, so hopefully that one will be good. And then one that I have seen multiple times, Summer Hours at the Robbers Library by Sue Halpern, and this potentially is a mystery as well. I don't know. So what we're going to do, what I'm going to do is take a look at these books, read the first chapter. I will read the first line to you of each one of them. And then as I go, I'm going to go ahead and rank them and see which 1 or 2, maybe 3 that I will add to my February TBR. I don't expect to unhaul any of these. I know in the past I've done try a chapter videos in order to decide if I'm unhauling them or not. I don't plan on unhauling any of these, but we'll see. Maybe the first chapter really stinks and doesn't make me want to read the book at all. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to start with The Last Chance Library. I think it probably will be the one that I really do want to read this year. We'll see how well Freya Sampson draws me in. Before I dive into the first chapter, I did look at what this is actually going to be about, and we're going to follow a librarian named June Jones, who works in a small English village in the local library and is kind of content to just do her own thing. She's 28 and would rather spend her time buried in books than venture out into the world. I don't know if I could relate to that at all. But then the library is threatened to close, and a group of eclectic library patrons comes together to try to save the library. I know Freya Sampson does a great job with quirky characters, found family, which I love both of those things. So I'm really hopeful. The first chapter is only 6 pages long, so I will probably read chapters 1 and 2 because that still only brings me to page 13. So I might read the first 2 chapters, but here's the first line. You can tell a lot about a person from the library books they borrow. Love it. I love it. So let me read the first chapter of this and I will get back to you. All right. So I just finished the first 2 chapters of The Last Chance Library. We don't really know too much. We get to see the library. It's in an old school building, which is kind of cool. Creaky floors, lots of wood, furniture, wood floor, slate roof that's a little bit leaky. We get a glimpse that it's a little rundown. So June is our main character. She works at this library, and we see her boss, this manager, who's a little high and mighty for the job that she has. She made herself her own name tag, turned a supply closet into her office and put a nameplate on the door and everything. Like, she's just a little sure of herself, we'll say. We know that June is a little on the shy side. This manager told her that she's going to have to run like a story time basically. And she said, no, I'm not doing that. So we see her go home. She has some kind of a pet. We don't know what the pet is yet. It's her birthday. One of the patrons, an older gentleman, brought her flowers for her birthday. Once he learned about her birthday years ago, he keeps bringing her flowers every year, which is super sweet. And we know that her mom was ill and then passed away. I don't know how long ago that happened. June is still grieving that. And Linda, I don't know who Linda is, a mom's friend or partner, I'm not sure. But Linda is encouraging June to remember her goals that she used to have and the dreams that she used to have for her life, and is kind of challenging her to step outside of this little bubble that she's put herself in. I know that I'm going to love it. I already feel for June. I love books that deal with grief in some way. So this is definitely very high on my radar at the moment. But let's go ahead, and I'm just going to do this in the same order of what I talked about them before. So then we have The Book Lover's Library by Madeline Martin. Again, this is going to be a World War II historical fiction. This was gifted to me from Monica. Thank you, Monica. Chapter 1 is 20 pages. There is a prologue, so I will read that as well. The first line of the prologue says, just one more chapter. Appropriate. And then the first line of chapter 1 says, Emma Taylor hugged the first edition copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland against her chest and strode determinedly down Pelham Street, finally arriving at the pawn shop. Oh no. It was a little bit of a long sentence there, but I think it's going to be a very bookish historical fiction. So let me see what I think about this one. All right, I just finished chapter 1 of The Book Lover's Library. That was a really good first chapter and prologue. I'm definitely feeling drawn into this story. Emma works at a bookshop with her single father. Their mom died when she was much younger, and so she runs the bookstore with her dad, but there's a fire and he helps her escape. They escape. They live above the bookshop. They are able to go downstairs and get outside, but sadly the dad passes away right there. Oh, right after they escape. Oh my goodness. So that was pretty devastating. We do start chapter 1 with 8 years later. So now it's 1939. Emma is selling off a first edition of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and we learn that she's a single mom. She had gotten married pretty quickly after her dad died, but we don't know much about their marriage, just that it wasn't super happy. But now she's been struggling for a few years, and as a single mom, having a hard time finding work, and the pension that she gets from her husband's estate is not very much. The government assistance for Olivia being a child is not very much. They're just scraping together to make ends meet. But then she gets a cup of tea after visiting the pawn shop. A storm breaks out. She has to wait it out in this tea shop, which is connected to this Book Lover's Library, which is a subscription only place, members only kind of thing. She sees a young woman quit her job. She asks the proprietor if she has a position open. They're about to do an interview right there on the spot. So I'm drawn into the story for sure. I love historical fiction and I love books about books. So it doesn't surprise me that I'm drawn into the story. Am I drawn in a little more than The Last Chance Library? They're pretty on par, and because they're so different, it's hard to say, but I do think I read through this quicker and was more eager to see what was going to happen. So I will put this Book Lover's Library at number 1, Last Chance Library at number 2 so far. Next up, we have The Lending Library by Eliza Fogelson. Again, I don't know much about this one. Yeah, the Chatsworth Library is closing indefinitely, and Dodie loses her sanctuary. How is a small-town art teacher supposed to cope without the never-ending life advice and enjoyment that books give her? I don't know. Well, when she's as resourceful and generous as Dodie, she turns her sunroom into her very own lending library. Oh, that's kind of fun. How long is this first chapter going to be? Let's see. 14 pages, decent. And the first line... Oh, and it's signed. That's kind of fun. I didn't realize that was a signed, this was a signed copy. Happy reading. First line says November 2007. I was sniffing glue again. Great. That's not a great first line, I don't think. But we're switching back to a contemporary, being in 2007. I guess you could still consider that contemporary. We shall see what I think of this first chapter. All right, I just read the first chapter of The Lending Library, where we meet Dodie, who is an art teacher at an elementary school, but she and her friend went to art college together and lived in New York for a little while, and then the friend convinced her to come back to her small town. So now she lives in the small town of Chatsworth and teaches art at the elementary school, but loves books and finds herself a little bit lonely. Her friend who she went to school with is adopting a child, and she has baby fever. She's in her 30s, which I do love, early 30s, that starting to be that middle of life. And I do love that she's not super young. And I think I will really enjoy this, but I don't know that I need to read it right now. So we just ended with her kind of at home by herself at the end of the day, feeling lonely and sad. And so she thinks about the library, the least lonely place that she could think of. And I love the last line of it. That's where she's going to go tomorrow, I resolved. And I finally fell asleep thinking about settling down in my favorite reading nook, surrounded by books and the shafts of light streaming through the windows. So I do think it's going to be very bookish. She talks about Sense and Sensibility. Miss Nelson is missing. Viola Swamp, who's the other character in Miss Nelson, is missing. As You Like It, Shakespeare. She talks a lot about books. I do think it's going to be very bookish. And I like her character, but I don't care about her yet in the end of chapter 1. So this is going to be number 3, 2, and still at the top is Book Lovers Library. Let's go ahead and do the next one. I'm kind of on a roll, so I might as well keep going. So the next one is Librarian, The Librarian of Boone's Hollow by Kim Vogel Sawyer. This is, again, a story of Appalachian Mountains. During the Great Depression, city dweller Addie dreams of becoming a novelist and offering readers the escape that books have given her during her tragic childhood. When her father loses his job, she's forced to take the only employment she can find, delivering books on horseback to impoverished coal mining families in the hills of Kentucky. So I knew that that's what we were going to be reading about. Let's see how long chapter 1 is. 13 pages. No prologue, so we dive right in. This was gifted me from Lynn. Thank you. So the setting of this says mid-May 1936, Lexington, Kentucky, Addie Cowherd. Her last name is Cowherd. The first sentence says, during her 3 years as a student at the University of Kentucky, Addie had never been summoned to a dean's office until today. Dun, dun, dun. So I'm going to dive into the first chapter of Librarian of Boone's Hollow. All right, that went by pretty quickly. We don't get very far in. Again, just reading the first chapter doesn't always give us very much, but we do meet Addie, who is a junior in college in Kentucky and doing really well, getting very good grades, working as well to pay for her room and board. And she's called into the dean's office and discovers that her parents haven't been making the payments for 3 months. And so they're dismissing her from the college. She's not going to be allowed to remain any longer. So she goes to the phone booths to try to call her parents, discovers that the phone line has been shut off. And then she tries to call her dad at work at the bank and discovers that he was laid off at the bank a few months ago. And she just didn't know about it. So she got caught up in college life and didn't know. And now her whole life is going to be turned upside down. So in my stack, I think I would probably place this third after Last Chance Library. So Book Lovers Library, Last Chance Library, Librarian of Boone's Hollow, and then The Lending Library. So that's where I would place it in the stack, and we have 2 more to go. So the next one I'm going to read is the first chapter of The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentile. Again, this is going to be a mystery, so I don't want to read too much on the back, but we are in Boston at the Boston Public Library. The reading room at the Boston Public Library is quiet until the tranquility is shattered by a woman's terrified scream. Oh my gosh. Security guards take charge immediately, instructing everyone inside to stay put until the threat is identified and contained. While they wait for the all clear, 4 strangers who'd happened to sit at the same table pass the time in conversation and friendships are struck. Each has his or her own reasons for being in the reading room that morning, and it just happens that one is a murderer. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! That sounds interesting. Okay, so there's a letter. It doesn't say prologue, but there is a letter at the very, very beginning. It's only 2 pages. But then chapter 1 starts with, Writing in the Boston Public Library had been a mistake. I mean, now that we know that there's going to be some situation going on and a murderer in the room, I'm very curious. And there are letters in here, so that's kind of fun. The first chapter is 8 pages. The print in this is very small. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and read the first letter as well as chapter 1. I may carry on into chapter 2 because that also is just a few pages. We shall see. But I'm going to go ahead and at least start with the first chapter. And I'll be back to tell you what I think. Okay, so this first chapter was kind of interesting. I didn't get what the letter was about until it got to the end of the first chapter and there was another letter. So it seems like I'm reading a book within a book. Because the friends, Leo is the author of the letters, and he's writing to Hannah, who is an author, and he tells her he'd be willing to read her chapters as she writes them. And so apparently this first chapter is a chapter that she wrote, and he gives her feedback in the letter at the end of chapter 1. So it's super interesting structure. I think that could be really fun. The last sentence of the chapter that she sent him says, "And so we go to the map room to found a friendship, and I have my first coffee with a killer." That's such a good ending to the first chapter. In the chapter, we follow a girl named Winifred, called Freddie by her friends. She's an aspiring writer at the reading room in the Boston Public Library. Struggling writer, having a hard time, having a bit of a writing slump. And so she just kind of looks at the people around her and makes up stories about them and kind of imagines what their life is like, just as a practice to keep writing. But then they hear a woman scream, and it kind of breaks the ice between these 4 people. And they start chatting and decide to go get coffee together. I don't love that their names are all a little bit unique. So there's a Winifred and a Marigold, Kane and Wit, which I'm like, none of those feel like common names, which is fine. I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued. But how intrigued am I when it comes to my stack of books? Oh, golly. I think, and there was one F-bomb in that first chapter too, which makes me think there's going to be more language. I think I'm putting it at 4. So Book Lovers Library is still the most intriguing to me at this point in time. Then Last Chance Library, then Librarian of Boone's Hollow, then The Woman in the Library, then The Lending Library. I am, however, still very interested in reading all of them, which is good. No intentions of unhauling. And we have just one final book to go. And I am going to get this all done this afternoon. I'm very pleased about that. So Summer Hours at the Robbers Library by Sue Halpern. I can't read the description, the full description, because it's covered up with stickers, but it seems like we're going to follow Kit, who's a librarian in Riverton, New Hampshire, talking about libraries. People are drawn to libraries for all kinds of reasons. And Kit is a librarian drawn to this library in New Hampshire. Here, no one expects Kit to talk about the calamitous events that catapulted her out of what she thought was a settled suburban life. She can simply submerge herself in her beloved books and try to forget her problems. But that changes when 15-year-old homeschooled Sunny gets arrested for shoplifting a dictionary. The judge throws the book at Sunny, literally assigning her to do community service at the library for the summer. Bright, curious, and eager to connect with someone other than her off-the-grid hippie parents, Sunny coaxes Kit out of her self-imposed isolation. They're joined by Rusty, a Wall Street high flyer, suddenly crashed to Earth. So there's a little library, some unique characters brought together by the library itself. So there's quite a long prologue. It is 18 pages long. And then it starts chapter 1, which takes us to page 36. I may not read the whole thing, but I will read the prologue and then enough to see what chapter 1 is about. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and read the prologue that starts with, "What you need to know about him back then is that if the police put 7 college students in a lineup looking for the one who played trombone in the marching band, Calvin Sweeney would be picked 10 times out of 10. I guess he looks like somebody who plays the trombone. And the funny thing is, he did play trombone in the marching band, which is how we met. So there we go. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I just finished, I kind of skimmed. I finished the first part and then skimmed through chapter 1. I am actually going to unhaul this and not continue. I'm not counting it as a DNF because I'm just was trying it out. The first part was back in college when she meets the guy she's going to marry, and it was just all about their sex life, honestly, and how they met each other. Not about their sex life because he was technically a virgin, and then I just didn't care. I didn't want to know all of that detail. There was no interest in that part whatsoever. And so as I started chapter 1 and we got more into the present day, now she's 40 years old. I don't know what happened to the husband. She's working at a library and this teenage girl shows up. I just wasn't interested at all. Didn't love the language, didn't care about the character at all. And so I went on Goodreads to double check, just kind of look at a couple reviews and see if it was something that is going to get better. Am I going to want to continue? It has a 3.61 rating, which is pretty low in my opinion. And as I was looking through reviews, a lot of people said it's a slow, quiet character study and not done very well, often pretty dull. So I'm like, well, that answers that question for me. I am not going to continue this one and I'm going to unhaul it, put it on my Pango shop. Maybe somebody else would be interested, or I might just put it in my little free library pile as well, but it's not going to be for me. But these 5 definitely are. So this is the ranking of them. I'm most interested in continuing the Book Lovers Library. I'm actually going to go see if I can get this available on Libby. And then the Last Chance Library. I'm hoping to get to these 2 in February. That would be amazing. And then I'm also still very interested in The Librarian of Boone's Hollow, The Woman in the Library. I'm curious where that one's going to go. And then The Lending Library by Eliza Fogelson, which does sound like it's going to be cute, but it just didn't draw me in as much as the others. So hopefully I will get to some of these. I would love to know if you have read any of them. Did any of them get put onto your lists because of this video? And also, have you been to the library lately? Do you have a library card? Are you a library lover? Let's enjoy February together. And also, if you have any other books that have a library in the title, let me know. Maybe I'll try to find them. We'll see. So let's chat down in the comments below. I love chatting with you down there. And if you've made it to the end, but you don't really feel chatty, that's totally fine. Put a stack of books emoji in the comments just to let me know that you were here watching today. I appreciate you all so much. And I look forward to chatting with you in another video very soon. Bye.